Chapter 43, Father and Son. Nowadays, the Qing dynasty is known as the world of prosperity. 10 years in a row of good weather, the people are rich and peaceful. There is the so-called 1,000 years of the first Ming Jun, 1,000 years of the first governance of the world, many titles. But very wonderful is that, along with it, there are known as the first in 1,000 years of the first corruption of the officialdom, the first in 1,000 years of the first treacherous prime minister. This treacherous prime minister is the prime minister Lord Lin Ruofu. The Chancellor of the People's Republic of China is the most important person in the country. People carefully observe the official positions that the Prime Minister has held, only to find that he has done civil service, military service, the department of the words of the ministers, the supervision of the position. Although the official position has had many ups and downs, but it is actually all the places in the officialdom of the state of Qing dynasty have experienced, and his official position has always been slowly but surely going upward. It was rumored that Lin Ruofu, a person who had no reliance in the inner palace and had no intertwined background relations, was able to sink and float in the complex officialdom of Qing, and never fell, which surprised many people. This Lord Chancellor's surface is clear and bright, but inside he is insidious and venomous, accepting countless bribes. Coupled with the fact that he offended a lot of people in the game between the civil official system and the princes and nobles, he has fallen into an image of power and nobility, and the people do not love him. Just as decades of kung fu has long been in the civil official system of the state of Qing has given birth to countless branches, the tree has been standing. From time to time, there are imperial historians who report to impeach the prime minister, but there has been no real evidence, so they have to stop. The clear-minded people in Kyoto hated him to the bone and could not wait to eat his flesh, but no one dared to provoke him to his face in the official world. In the entire country of Qing, in addition to His Majesty the Emperor can want the prime minister's life and position of power, other people cannot. This is the consensus of all officials. In the entire country of Qing, in addition to the Supervision Institute that the Dean of the Lord can spit in the face of the Prime Minister a face of saliva, other people are not so bold. This is the consensus of all the powerful and noble people. And that time the Dean of the Lord spat on the Prime Minister in the street, still paid the price of 3 years of salary. This punishment is His Majesty personally under. When people realized that His Majesty's trust in the Chancellor had never weakened, those officials and scholars who prided themselves on their clarity began to despair a little. It was at this time that no one expected that the newspaper actually published the news that Chancellor Lin Ruofu actually had an illegitimate daughter. It's not unusual for the head of any large family to have several concubines, so if you only have one woman in your family's backyard, I'm sorry, but it's embarrassing to go to a party. But the world style is the most important bloodline etiquette, like the Chancellor of the Lord, although everyone knows the cunning and horrible, but after all, has always pretended to be clean, actually have an illegitimate daughter outside, which belongs to the virtues of the loss. And that daughter has been a teenager, actually did not take back to the house, let her live alone outside, as a father to speak, is also considered to be no proof of benevolence. Because the news is released from the palace, so in Kyoto officialdom triggered a small earthquake, people have speculated, is not His Majesty the Emperor to see the Chancellor has been tired of watching, ready to change people to do, which has later the imperial historian collective letter to the matter. To everyone's surprise, His Majesty the Emperor personally stepped in and suppressed the matter. Things gradually calmed down, but that Chancellor's illegitimate daughter became the center of attention. Fan Xian smiled bitterly, never imagining that the woman he was about to marry was actually of such origin and so similar to his own birth. It was at this moment that the commotion outside grew louder, and the brother and sister, knowing that the man had returned to the house, looked at each other and said no more. Fan Xian just used his eyes to request his sister to take him out for a stroll when she was free, and Fan Ruo nodded slightly. The candlelight was up, but it wasn't completely dark outside, so the candlelight looked very dim. There were 5 people sitting at a table of sumptuous dishes in the hall, with many maids and underlings serving beside them. Fan Xian noticed that Lu didn't wait on the head of the family to eat first, like a normal family's aunt, but sat next to the middle-aged man with a calm demeanor. That middle-aged man was his own father? Thinking of this, Fan Xian's brows couldn't help but wrinkle slightly, making extremely nice little creases between his brows. Sinan Bo had a solemn face, with proper features, and a 4-inch beard in his jaw, which was a favorite of the people of the time, so he looked like he knew that he was serious in nature and did not smile or talk. After eating quietly, Sinan Bo walked in front, Fan Xian followed behind, and came all the way to the study. This was the first time Fan Xian had been alone with his father, and he smiled, not very excited, because deep down, he had never really seen the other side as his own flesh and blood. Sinan Bo looked at the young man in front of him, looking at his elegant face, pondering for a long time before sighing softly and saying, "You look so much like your mother." Fan Xian did not have words to say to each other, as he had not seen what his mother looked like. But for the Lord Father in front of him, he had countless questions in his mind, but knew that it was not his turn to ask them first. "How have you been in Tanyu all these years?" Sinan Bo looked at him, his brows seemed a little tired, but he still couldn't hide the remaining traces of his handsomeness from when he was in his prime. "It's not bad. On the way here, I believe that with your character, you should have already found out from Fuji Zijing's mouth the reason why I'm in a hurry to let you into the capital this time." "Yes." "Will you feel aggrieved?" "No." Fan Xian smiled and replied, "I'm just hitchhiking to the capital. It's not like I'm saying that I must marry that Lin family lady." As soon as these words left his mouth, a deathly silence fell over the study. After a long time, Sinan Bo coldly said, "Do you know what marrying the other party means?" "It means that, in addition to the holy favor that has never waned, the fan house can also embrace a thigh in the imperial court that is too thick to be thick." Fan Xian replied with a sneer. Originally, he didn't have much affection for the middle-aged man in front of him, and by all rights, he should be able to maintain the calmness of a bystander, but when he thought that the other party was after all his own father, and that he had treated his sons' and daughters' marriages as a political alliance, even though he understood and accepted it, that didn't mean that he wasn't furious. It's just that this anger, in the previous days, had been well hidden by him.